Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the Drummers Education Connection. My name is Jeremy
Hello.
Steinkohler. I'm here with two of my very dear friends, Rick Stojak in San Diego, Chip Ritter down in Arizona. Unfortunately, we are missing our fourth compatriot today, Bart Robley. He's in the middle of a studio remodel, so we wish him the best of luck with that. I know he'll be tuning in. And our guest today is a dear friend and a bright light. He'll never admit it because he's the humblest guy, but he's a bright light in the drumming education industry. His name is Mark Wessels. He is the director of education for Zildjian and Vic Firth. Welcome, Mark. So happy to have you.
Hey guys.
Hey,
thanks for having me.
Mark.
Being on. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Mark's just one of the nicest guys in the business, and he's actually been at the forefront of drumming education and online education since there was an online. Mark had, excuse me, one of the very first websites devoted to drumming called thedrumclub.com, which you can still actually find in a web archive online. I was just looking at it. I think there's like a Pong game in it, maybe.
You have to go to the Wayback Machine. And go way back to the Wayback Machine.
but yeah, right. It's a reverse. But you had the idea, man. You knew something was coming with the internet, and you got something going with that. And ever since then, you've been at the forefront of creating online content, both for Zildjian, or now for Zildjian, but for Vic Firth. You've been working with Vic Firth for how many years?
21 years.
Yeah, 21 years.
2000. Yeah. That was before companies really had a website, you know?
Right. So you sort of, rode the wave or helped create the wave for online drumming education and resources. And if for those of you who are familiar with the Vic Firth website, that was really mostly Mark's creation. Is that right?
Yep. Basically I started that from scratch in 2000. They had kind of a website, but it was really, like in the dark ages of the internet. So clunky and so bad. There was nothing on there. You couldn't even, look at a drumstick. So that's how I got hired.
Yeah. And there's so many other projects you're involved with. You do the VFJams and the Zildjian live productions. And you're also a published author. You've got a series of books called Fresh Approach, like a fresh approach to snare drumming and fresh approach to mallet.
There you go.
Oh yeah, Rick's gotten right there. And those, believe it or not, those have over 450,000 copies among all his titles in print worldwide. So Mark is a very respected worldwide published author and, like I said, head of education at Zildjian and Vic Firth. So Mark, thank you so much for coming on. My first question to you is, what are you most excited about right now? What are you doing? Which one of your projects is like the most exciting for you?
Well, and I think you should live like this, that every single day you have a list of things that you really are excited about and things that you want to get accomplished. And then you go to bed with only half of the list done, so it's, if you've got more things on your plate and more things that you want to do than you have time to do them, then you're probably sitting in a pretty good place, but most excited. Hey, we're doing on the Zildjian education. We are going to be launching a YouTube channel for the Zildjian Learning Zone. I have been putting together a ton of content for Zildjian, an entire series of bop drumming lessons with Jim Riley, an entire series of lessons with Stanton Moore. We have our Zildjian drum workouts. We have Zildjian rhythm cards. We have Zildjian drum method that I just finished writing and filming with Wayne Salzman. I mean, I could just keep going, but all of this stuff, we're going to launch it with probably 100 videos of educational content, and then keep adding to it because, there's just so many great educators out there that we can kind of tap into to help that. And then on the Vic side, we have a marching and concert YouTube channel that's been kind of dormant a little bit, but we're going to really pump a lot of energy into the concert side on the Vic Firth concert channel and marching channel. And then, obviously keep going with everything that we're doing in education on the Vic Firth side. So it's kind of a balancing act between the two brands, but I've got that going, and I'm in the middle writing another book. And then I have an online online classroom resource for the Fresh Approach to Snare Drum that's going up in a month or so. A couple of things, you know.
So yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of free time.
Yeah, a lot of free time.
Wow.
And then I watch the Cowboys and drink bourbon. So other than those,
there we go.
Wow.
There we go, Cowboys.
That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of really, really great stuff. I mean, any one of those is like a massive undertaking with lots of collaboration with artists and marketing people and production team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like everything that I've done with the Vic Firth site since it began really is a collaboration with artists. You know, every time I talk to somebody, like everybody brings something to the table that's really unique and has a voice that's completely different than somebody else's. And it doesn't necessarily matter whether that's been done before. In my view, that your voice is so unique, you need to do it. And, you know, like, how can we use our channel to help bring that to, you know, a wider audience and inspire more kids to learn how to play? You know?
Oh man, I just love that. I mean, that makes me think about drumming in general and art and how, you know, what we do as drummers. It's really not about whether it's been done before. It's really not about whether you're doing it the best. It's about bringing your own voice to the table and offering something, you know, musically to the music you play in and pursuing your passion in that way. So it sounds like you're doing that on the education side and the online side too. That's really, really great.
Yeah, I think it's you know, like I remember it really vividly. I was in college and I was teaching privately, you know, a couple of high school with a bunch of private teachers, and I was using a book, and it's kind of like Vic's story on you know, timpani mallets. Like nothing that I was using was really working for me and the way I teach. So I just started writing a book. And then, you know, immediately you got, when you tell people you're writing a book, people immediately go, what are you doing that for? There are so many books out there.
Right.
You don't need to do that. You know, like find something that works. And then, you know, but ultimately it's your voice. And, you know, well, I got things that I want to do, you know, and it worked out pretty well. So, you know, like I always encourage when people say, you know, I'm writing this book or whatever, I go, great, bring it. You know, like every book that I have and every book that somebody comes out with that I buy has something completely different.
Right. That's right. Well, and look no further than the guys we have assembled here. Rick Stojak's got a series of books called How to Build a Drum Groove that he invented in that very same manner, where he was working with his students and felt like there was nothing out there that hit the mark on what he wanted to be able to bring to the table for his students. So he wrote it. And Chip has several books out. Snare Force One, that's sort of like a Air Force themed introductory snare drum book for kids. You got a couple of different books, right, Chip?
Yeah, the Snare Force One is a book that kind of brings brand new drummers that are into marching band and helps them get to read music and understand rests and note values and stuff like that. It's a good introduction to school band music.
You know, and that's what I love about. I mean, I love drum books. If you look at my studio, it's like I got multiple shelves just full of drum books. I like anything that piques my interest in even the least bit. I buy because, you know, even if it's been done before, maybe it's put together in some way that's more methodical or more smarter. And I feel like there's something to take away. You know, I feel like every drum instructor ought to have a big library of drum books.
Hey, Mark,
right. and not every.
Mark,
oh, sorry, Chip.
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask, what was the first book you wrote, and what provoked that?
Well, it was a snare drum book, and you know, but what provoked it was I was teaching all these kids, and I was using some Haskell Har because I love the rudiment stuff and the fundamentals of that, and I was using some Garwood Whaley because it was much more into reading and musicality, and then I was supplementing it with some older, you know, Gardner method and different, you know, a bunch of different things like that. And so every time a kid would come in, they'd have to come in with their 4 or 5 books, and I would flip over this page, and, you know, and pretty soon I just decided, well, I'm just going to cut out some copy, you know, back in the old days, cut out a piece and stick it on a piece of paper and then kind of create my own manual of stuff and go to Kinko's and do it, you know, copyright infringement. But, you know, like that's what I was doing to try to save my kids some money.
Right.
And then pretty soon it was like, why am I doing that? Let me just write this stuff because I needed to, fill it out. So that's was the original fresh approach to snare drum. And I don't have one, but I even drew a caveman on the cover. And, so that was like in 1986, I think, 85, 86 when I was doing that. And I just kept changing it and changing it and changing it instead of like going, this is it, this is my book, and it's never going to, change. You have to kind of have that attitude that I'm going to keep adapting.
Yeah.
I play along CDs. Hey, that's cool. DVD. Oh, that's cool. Let's do that. Oh, nobody's doing DVDs anymore. Let's put it online. Oh, let's add a learning thing. Like you just got to adapt.
Yeah. That's I 100% agree with that. Yeah. And that's one of the nice things about publishing your own books, or at least having a really good relationship with your publishers. You can keep updating it, making it fresh and adding new material and refining it.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And I think it's very important to have kind of an array of books that you can bring to your students, because not every drummer is going to learn the same. So in my book, I have, which is a drum set book, pairing beats to songs. I have a resource guide, and I have a snare drum section. And I have Snare Force One, and I have a fresh approach in there, and some old Roy Burns books that I learned out of. And so it's just great. Different people are going to just adapt to different books. But Mark, this is amazing, though. You've sold over 450,000 copies of this.
With the snare drum book is about 300, right in that 300,000. But I have a fresh approach to mallet, which is selling like, because that's more based off of the school band thing. I don't know if you guys have this one, the fresh approach to drum set. I have a fresh approach to 4 mallets now with a former student of mine that we wrote together, and I'm working on some other stuff too. So, and I have a little theory book, So anyway, it's just that early decision to self-publish was like exactly the right decision to make. Because a few publishers came to me and said, hey, we see that a lot, do you want to publish it with us? And I just went, it's not ready yet. It's, and I kept changing and went, you know what, this whole self-publishing thing's working out. So
are all your books self-published?
Yep.
Wow. And to have that many copies sold as a self-published author, that's incredible. Good for you, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing, I mean, like there are reasons to go with an Alfred or Hal Leonard or publisher. There are definite reasons because they can get it out in front of a lot of people.
Right.
But I find now that, like we have the resources available to promote your own stuff, and that was my very earliest days in the internet, was to create a website to help promote my stuff when there were no websites. But, like if you publish with a publishing company, and I maybe get in trouble here, but they are not really going to promote your stuff.
Right.
They're going to put it in their catalog. They're going to do the initial launch of it. They're going to maybe take it to a trade show, but it's all on you. If you want to sell your book, it's really on you to get that out there and get the word out and have people start using it.
That's right. That's right. And so, from looking at it from one perspective, it's like, well, if you've got to do all the legwork to promote it and market it and hustle, why not publish it yourself? Right.
Right.
From
right.
One perspective. I mean, yeah.
And it's grown. I mean, like the early days, it was going to Kinko's and, making 20 copies, and then finally getting a printer. I have a fulfillment company now. My wife does the orders entry, the ordering, taking orders from music stores, sending it to the fulfillment company. They pack and ship, so it's gotten big enough to where it's not like it's not still in my garage or anything.
You're not making carbon. Yeah. What do you call those? Carbon copies or mimeographs.
Yeah.
in your garage.
I did have that, like there was one summer that just flipped the switch, because we used to do the comb binding. You have one of those comb binding machines where you put a bunch of paper in and you pull the lever, and I finally sold enough books that I completely had comb binding elbow because of the number of times that I did this. And it hurt so bad that I just went, I gotta stop this. I don't know what I'm doing. And we were hand collating everything. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
because
Well, but
I'm really cheap at heart.
but I talk with Jim Royal about this a lot, about taking leaps, leaps of faith and leaps of leaps of faith, really, about when you're in a position where you're wanting to grow or you're needing to grow, and it's going to mean you're investing a lot of money back into whatever it is, or maybe you're going and practicing more because you're trying to get to that next level of gig. And how scary that can be when you've got to, here you were, doing all yourself, and all of a sudden you got to hand it off to somebody else, which, I hope the quality's still good and they can do it the way we do it. And I've got to invest all this money and approve whatever it is you have to do.
Yeah, I have a great story on that, because when I first started writing the book, there was no desktop publishing. Like the Mac had just come out. There was no Finale, and there was no, InDesign or PageMaker or any of that stuff. And then when the computer finally got to that first Finale, it was like Pieware or some kind of music writing program that was really bad, and I had that. But Finale 1.0 came out, and I went, I've got to buy a computer. And so, like the choice was a Macintosh that had a 12-inch screen or a Mac that had a 13-inch screen, and that was an $800 upgrade. I think I got in at the Mac 2, and it was like the entire thing with the laser writer and the printer and Finale was $750, and the PageMaker was $750. I think I spent about $14,000 on my first computer.
Yeah.
And how I survived my marriage. I shouldn't say first marriage. It's my only marriage. I've been married, But we need a car. I need a computer.
Well, you needed the computer to get to the car.
Right.
That's
why you take that leap of faith.
Yeah, you believed in it. Yeah, well, good on you, man. Congrats on the great success of your books and all that. That's really exciting.
Yeah, Mark, that would put you in probably one of the top selling books of all time.
Yeah, I would think so.
Or a top selling series of all time.
Yeah, I think so. The real basis of a fresh approach and the fresh approach to mallets is that it's used in a lot of school systems, like beginning bands, and especially here in Texas, they have beginning percussion classes, and they might have 12 kids that come in every year to a percussion class. So, it's not like I've done that with my drum set book, which I wish it was, but like it's because of that continual every year. There's another, I think I do about 15,000 books a year, something around that level.
Wow.
But it's because of the school band thing more than it is the studio thing, I think.
Well, and your marketing. My book has a copy, Vic Firth education program, and it's a letter from you. So you put a lot of effort into this, man. Is there an electronic version available on these?
No, the new online resource that we're coming out with Rhythm Monster is going to have all of these things in, like it's a website. It's got all the video lessons that I recorded with each lesson in the book. It's got a notation, where you can watch the video and you can see the scrolling notation that goes by. Cool. And then you can select a line out of the book. If you want to loop it, you can select that line, and, it slows the video down if you want it to, or you can select without the accompaniment or with the accompaniment, or, it's got all of those tools that are, pretty new. So that's kind of a way of doing the electronic thing without doing a PDF, because, I just have not gotten to that point where I want a PDF floating out of the book out there,
Exactly.
What's the name of that website where we can find that?
It's not launched yet, but it's going to be rhythmmonster.com.
Okay.
So you can if you go to my website, I've got, I've already got the online school or the online lessons and all of that stuff, but Wessels or mwpublications.com. So that's what I did during the pandemic was, record about 70 hours of lessons.
Wow.
Because you're not doing anything else, you might as well.
Well, This was our pandemic project, was putting together the Drummers Education Connection.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So what you don't have anything to do with like product development at Vic Firth or Zildjian, do you?
No, we have meetings, we bring up, ideas and things like that. But as far as product development, that's not on my plate, which is good because, that's a whole nother world and a whole nother, set of responsibilities.
Mark, you're the director of education for Vic Firth or Zildjian? Which?
Well, Zildjian is the parent
what is your
company.
official title?
It's director of education for the Avedis Zildjian Company.
Okay, for
and
Zildjian. And you
they
were with
own.
Vic Firth.
Yeah, they own Vic Firth. So Vic Firth is, is subsidiary, or if you want to call it, it's a company within the Zildjian Company.
Can I ask you a stupid question?
Yep.
Does Vic Firth own their own forests?
We heard that.
No,
Somebody said that.
No. We've always gotten, all the way from the early days. We got our wood from wood resources in Tennessee, Eastern Tennessee, Appalachian forest. And that's where the best wood comes from, the best hickory and all of that. They supply wood for, furniture companies, for, large scale operations. But they buy the planks, which are the big boards that are sawed. And then that's when they have a truck that just goes back and forth all the time between Tennessee and North Carolinas and West Virginia up to the factory. And then from that point on is when they actually, cut it into squares and dry the wood and do all of the stuff that goes along with that.
Mark Wessels, ladies and gentlemen, dispelling rumors right here.
I want a tour of the Vic Firth forest.
So you're the director of education with Zildjian. How did that come about? How did you end up becoming the director of education?
Well, I was actually, from the early days, I don't think they knew what to call me. Neil Larrabee, who was the director of education and the product development for Vic Firth for years and years, was actually a really good friend of mine. Yeah. I was just a teacher in Texas, and I was on the Vic Firth education team and, went to the meetings and all of that stuff. I had this website, I guess, at the point where Vic was wanting to have a website, and Neil's the one that got me the job at Vic. Basically, said, hey, you need to hire this guy. He's really good with this internet thing, So worked with Neil for a long time. They called me the director of internet activities back then, which was, like that would just basically mean you're a god now, but I think it's like, hey, you can't have internet activities. That's pretty much everything we do, except for make products. But I was in the marketing department, basically it was online marketing. So I was the digital marketing director for Vic for a lot of years. And we had a, kind of a print marketing team, but everything that was on the website, from education to, videos, performance videos, all the way through, taking pictures of products and all of that stuff that's on the website. I was in charge of that. Eventually, Zildjian bought Vic. We worked kind of separately for a number of years. It was the Zildjian Company and the Vic Firth Company, and didn't share employees. They started working on the back end of, finance and human resources. And then eventually it got to the point where they combined the marketing teams. And then I kind of became the digital marketing director for both companies. So that's where Zildjian Live and Zildjian Underground and, all of those things came out. And then eventually they decided, hey, this education thing is not, Neil left Vic. And then they decided, well, we should have one person in charge of education for both companies. So that's what I'm doing now.
Right on. That makes a lot more sense.
Wow.
Ooh.
Hey, Mark, Vic was iconic and a legend and just one of the sweetest people. and so inspiring. It must have just been incredible to work with him. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with him?
I'll tell you, this could be a while, and there's
Love
many stories I can't tell. You know, no, but Vic was, you know, he's the kind of guy that I wish to be, because not only was he, you know, an entrepreneur. I mean, he was an amazing player, and I remember watching the Boston Symphony on CBS on Sunday nights when I was in junior high school, you know, just to see him play. And I didn't even know who it was. It was just like, wow, that guy's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, like he was an amazing timpani player with the Boston Symphony for 50 years. He was one of the youngest players to get in a position in the orchestra. You know, he was only 22, I think. He wasn't even out of college when he won the job in the Boston Symphony. He taught at the New England Conservatory. He wrote books. He wrote percussion ensembles. He started this stick company, you know, out of thin air.
At what,
you know, like
what age?
all of that stuff.
Mark, at what age did Vic start the company? Wasn't it in his late 50s?
It was 63 or 62. He was basically the timpanist in the Boston Symphony. And then it was not funny, but after he had passed, we were clearing out his old cabinets and stuff and came across, we got some pictures of it, of the first pair of SD1s that he literally hand whittled, you know, and sanded and, you know, because the sticks that were available just, you know, back in the old days, they were just warped and you couldn't find two that actually matched, you know, and you had to roll everything and you had to knock them on your head and, you know, all of that stuff. And he went, this is crazy. Yeah. I mean, he told me that, you know, like these violinists will spend thousands of dollars just on a bow. And we have this piece of junk that we're trying to match, or, you know, right. So that's when he started. And he didn't have any intention on, you know, having a company. He just wanted to make some products. And then he was teaching and his student said, hey, can I buy some of those from you? And he started making those. And I remember, you know, like the symphony would tour, and this was back before I worked there, but he, you know, told the story. The symphony would tour and they would go back in the days when symphonies actually toured. He would visit the drum shop wherever the orchestra was, and he'd take his products in and, you know, hawk his products to the drum shops. And we came across an invoice, a hand printed invoice for Frank's Drum Shop in Chicago. And it was like his very first order, and it was one pair of snare SD1s, one pair of SD2s, like, and it was handwritten. And, you know, like he made up some invoice number of 1032, you know, whatever, you know, to make himself look good. And then I don't think he ever even thought that it would, you know, turn into what it turned into.
I love that story. I mean,
and now I would have to say it's pretty safe to say it's by far the largest drumstick manufacturer. It probably, I can only imagine what percentage of sales are Vic Firth sticks out there.
Yeah, you know, both Zildjian and Vic Firth are number one by a lot. Yeah. It doesn't mean, and this is the thing about Vic, was that it didn't matter how many he was selling, you know, like of one thing. It was always what are we doing next? What are we doing next? You know, how do we make that better? How do we improve this? What's the next thing that people want? And he always, hey, you guys probably know, like all of the things that every time that we had one of those drummer education meetings, he was right there, you know, and he was talking to people and he wanted to know, you know, and he didn't want to know from us all the time. He wanted to know from you guys, you know, what's working, what's not working, what do we need? What do you see out there? You know, and I think that's what I took away from him more than anything else is like, you're not going to have every idea in the world, you know. Mm-hmm. You have to listen because people have ideas and it doesn't matter what walk of life they come from. They're going to have an idea and you need to listen.
That's it. And, you know, he's a guy like Roy Burns, too. Super engaged with the company and with the artists, too. Vic was so accessible and just the nicest guy, and I think he would just talk to anybody. And
Yeah.
I think it's just a testimonial to achievement too, that he started the largest stick company in the world at such an age. So all my students who are in their 30s, don't tell me you're old. You know?
Yep.
Well, you know, I love that story about how he got started with the company making sticks because he needed sticks because there was nothing out there.
Mhm.
And so he needed, you know, so he made them for himself, and everyone else was like, well, yeah, we need those too.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of comes back to what we talked about with the books, where, like, you know, we're teaching and we see that there's a something missing, something that we need that doesn't exist. So we go ahead and make it, you know, and that's what you did with your fresh approach to your snare drum books. One of the things I've observed, you know, in my, whatever, I started drumming when I was 10, I'm 51 now. So 40 years since I've been doing this. And when I first started playing, you know, there was a 5A, a 5B, a 7A, and I think maybe a 3A, maybe a 2B. And that was it. That was it. You had like 5 drumstick choices. And now, you know, there's like 100 just from Vic Firth, which I love. I mean, and that people always come up to me and they see my stick bag and it's got all these different kinds of sticks in it. And they're like, you know, what do you need all those sticks for? Like, well, this one's for playing jazz. This one's for playing in the coffee house. This one's where I'm doing second line stuff and I'm doing a lot of parade thing. And for me, you know, having every stick that's, you know, just a little bit different lends itself to different articulation and different styles and different things. Things feel easier with different sticks, depending on what I'm doing. So I appreciate the tremendous variety that's out there now. I'm curious, like, was that, you know, back in the days, and maybe this was even before your time, when there was 4 or 5 different stick models, you know, how did we get from 4 to 100? Like, what was whose idea was that?
I think 100 is pretty low. As I think we might have 100 variations on a 5A.
Are you kidding me?
So,
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but if you put up every schematic of every stick that we have there, you know, 5A makes up a huge portion of the catalog because it is that kind of, you know, every man's tool.
Yeah.
Some are just have a little bit more taper. Some might have just a little, you know, tiny bit shorter, tiny bit longer, a different kind of bead. But if you put all those up, you would see that. And I think, you know, to answer your question, it happened because Vic listened to drummers, you know, like his early students of Harvey Mason, you know, was using one stick and said, you know, I like it, except for it's just a little clunky, or it feels a little heavy on the front end. You know, if he was using a Bolero or something like that, I would like it a little thinner. I would like this, you know, and he listened and he made products like that. So, you know, like his mindset was always what is the product that I need to bring to the world that they're going to buy? It was, what do you need to do your job? What do you need to be to create your art? You know, that was his whole mindset, was not to try to force anybody to do one thing, but to bring something that's going to help you do what you do. So I think that's why we have, I don't know, 200 and something models.
I can't wait to play the Jeremy Steinkohler signature.
Yeah, that's very hush hush. That's still in production, Rick. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Talk about that.
And you have to combine that with all of the models of Zildjian sticks, because Vic Firth, the Vic Firth company, have made the Zildjian sticks for a number of years. So that's really even more in the catalog. Yeah.
As well as the Vader, I believe, correct? At one point?
No, we don't make Vader. Way
back in the day.
You're reaching beyond.
Okay.
I don't know how old you are, Rick. I thought you were like 40 something.
Well, good. We'll let you keep thinking that I'm 40 something. I had heard that way back in the day, that Vic did make some of the initial Vaders, but I could be wrong.
Maybe they did. You know, we OEM'd a lot of products for a lot of different companies, you know, like make it for them, and they would, you know, like, but, you know, even Zildjian, you know, when it was 2 separate companies and they decided to start making drumsticks, they didn't want Vic making their sticks. They wanted to, like, they got a mill and they got a, you know, like they tried to make it themselves, and it's not easy making a drumstick, especially a quality stick. It's really, really, really difficult. So eventually they just went, what are we doing this for? And then Vic started making her sticks probably in 2010 or something like that. You know, I'm guessing, but
Rick, I think
it's been a while.
That was before Vader went over to the dark side.
I'll break your sticks, Luke.
Hey, Mark, you do a lot of work with drum set, snare drumming, and you also work with concert and marching percussion. So in my life as a drummer, I've always sensed that there's been like a divide between drum set players and drum corps players. And how do you agree with that? And what do you think we could do to maybe bridge that gap and get people a little more together on that?
Well, I think, you know, I mean, I was heavily involved in drum corps. I taught drum corps. I judged drum corps for a number of years, and WGI, and you know, like still film, and you know, still having my foot in all of that. I think there was like a kind of a paradigm shift in drum corps. It used to be so heavy, downstroke, very tense, you know, like from the early days, that it got a really bad rap because, you know, like the type of playing that they would do, and you can't see my hands, but you know, like squeezing the stick and really, you know, to make it exactly uniform with 10 snare drummers, and you know, all of that stuff that went into it got a really bad rap, and none of that technique really you know, like translated to drum set. So, you know, like you'd have these drum corps guys who played drum set, but you always knew that they had a drum corps background. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, like Dennis DeLucia and the Bridgemen kind of started changing that whole approach to more of a relaxed flow. And, you know, Pat Petrillo and Tommy Igoe, and, you know, like a number of those guys came out of that drum line, the Bridgeman drum line, and just had such a natural flow that they automatically could apply it, you know. So I think that it's kind of changed a lot. I'm seeing more and more kids change from drum corps into drum set without having to completely rewrite their technique, you know, completely start over. You know, Stanton Moore studied with Marty Hurley back in the day, and you know, had to completely, you know, study with Johnny Vodakovich, you know, to fix all of his drum corps hands, you know.
Right.
But I think right now it's really, it has to do with the activity of itself, you know, which is more of a group kind of activity. It's more of a, you know, like, it's almost like a sport, you know, it's like playing high school basketball. Yeah. You know, like you get in there and you work so hard to perfect something, and when you age out or when it's over, you know, like how many people still play basketball at a high level, you know, and then you ask them to go to drum set and they have to like, okay, I've never used these feet for anything, you know, like I've never done independence. How do I make that work? You know? Yeah. So there is a divide there, you know, it's just a matter of getting kids early on drum set, I think.
You did a couple videos. I saw some videos and lessons with Stanton Moore that you just mentioned. He's a phenomenal drummer from New Orleans. And how did that come about? How did you get in touch with Stanton? And can you tell us a little bit about working with him?
Yeah. Well, Stanton and I are really good friends. I knew him from way back. You know, like one of the early interview I did with him on the Vic Firth side when he came out with his signature stick. I flew down to New Orleans, spent some time with him, and, you know, we got to know each other really well. And cool. We kind of came from the same background because I was, you know, Marty Hurley, his teacher, and I were really good friends when Marty was still alive. So we had all of that kind of common background. And then, you know, I had written the Fresh Approach to Drum Set.
There it is.
And, you know, like I was getting ready to film all of the lessons for that. And I was woodshedding everything, and I don't, you guys probably don't know the book real well, but in the back I go into, you know, like jazz and Latin and world styles and all of that, and I can do all that. It was just, you know, it was kind of like, do I want anybody to see me do that? You know. So I was really practicing and woodshedding all this stuff, and then Stanton and I were out probably drinking something, and I went, "Hey, would you want to film the lessons for this drum book?" And he was like, "Yeah, man, absolutely." So
That'd be cool.
I got him in, and he filmed all the lessons for the Fresh Approach to the drum set, all the way from how to hold a stick, all the way up to like some pretty serious sambas. And
people can get that on your website, MW Publications.
Yeah. And then Stanton's got them all in his Stanton Moore Academy. I don't know if you guys check that out, but he's got all of his Fresh Approach lessons in there too.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah,
cool.
we gotta get Stanton to come on here sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be amazing. Hey, Mark, I was wondering if you could make sense of stick sizing. So many of my students come in and, wait, this one, what's the number? Is it bigger? Is it bigger? Shouldn't it be heavier? And they're all, so
yeah, and that happened way before even Vic. So, like that, the Capella days and originally, and here's what I understand is that the A stood for acoustic, which was for acoustic drumming, like if you're in a jazz band or whatever. B was for band, so if you were in a concert band, you played B. The S was for street, which you don't really see S's anymore, but it was band and street. And then, the rest they just made up.
Okay.
For a while it was, so with the A's, if you start at 5, the further you go up in the scale, it gets thinner.
Mm-hmm.
Further you go down in the scale, it gets thicker. It's for the A's and the B's, I think,
Okay.
But, that it went out the window, I think, a long time ago. They were just looking for, letters to separate their stick from every other stick that's on the market,
Right.
Yeah.
And what sticks are you using right now? Like, what's your go-to pair?
I'm still a 5A guy.
Okay.
I'm still in that world of, I'm just not good enough, I guess. That, whatever sticks are in my hand, I can make work. I'm not going to play a jazz gig with a 2B stick or anything like that. But, I don't necessarily, play enough that I need, a really long taper to get a nicer bounce on the ride cymbal, And I have seen so many drummers who obsess over a specific stick, like this doesn't feel just right. It's like, dude, that's not the problem,
Wait, no.
You just need to play.
That's not what you're supposed to say, Mark. You're supposed to say, it's all about the stick. You really need to get a different pair.
No, I've been to so many conventions, and like a kid, like PAS, where we have all the sticks, like a kid walks up, picks up a pair of sticks, plays it, and nah, like they just throw it back. I don't like these at all. And they'll pick up another one and they don't like those at all. And I just kind of sit back and go, like, a couple of lessons, you might like any one of those.
It's the shoes, man. It's the shoes.
Yeah.
Yep. If you want to obsess, it's kind of cool. It's a gearhead thing. It's like people who, like you said, shoes, like they make a trillion different kinds of shoes and colors, and shoes for running, shoes for tennis, shoes for jogging, shoes for walking, shoes for hiking. It's crazy. But if if that's your thing, then that's your thing, I guess.
Well, we got to remember that, some of our heroes, the early drummers, especially the jazz guys, they didn't have all these options for sticks that we have today, and still they sounded amazing. And not about drumsticks.
Look, one time in a lesson, a student wasn't getting triplets. I said, here, try this pair of Vic sticks. You'll play triplets. These are good for playing triplets. Dude, it worked. It worked.
The triplet stick.
Are those the 5T? Is that the 5T?
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, do you ever have sleepless nights? Should I play a Zildjian stick or a Vic stick?
I was with Vic a lot longer than I was with Zildjian.
Yeah. Well, and
what's crazy is I remember the Zildjian sticks being really bad, for an amount of time that they were trying to make them themselves, it was like, oh my God, these are terrible, you know. And then when Vic started making the stick, it was the same, you know, same models and everything, and the quality just, it's a Vic stick. It's not a different stick, or, you know, like different manufacturing process or anything like that. It's still, to this day, we find people who like have a bad opinion about Zildjian sticks. They're terrible. Like, but I love Vic Firth. But you hate Zildjian? Yeah, those are terrible. I love Vic Firth, you know. Okay, you know.
That's just because they haven't
You know,
tried them.
if I want a neon green stick, I'll go to Zildjian, you know.
There you go.
Hey, we want to say give a shout out to some of our friends watching and tuning in today. Tony McNally over in the UK. We love Tony. He's got that fantastic Tone Ally training device for getting your stroke vertical and perpendicular, which is really, really good. I use that in my studio. Jim Royal is online tuning in. Hey, Jim. Jacob Sosa.
Hey, Jacob.
Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming out, tuning in. Feel free to chime in with questions for Mark, you guys, if you have them. Mark,
especially about the Cowboys.
and how the Patriots were all about Tom Brady and not Bill Belichick, but that's a different story. But Mark's been in the business for 25 years, 30 years now, with Vic Firth and director of education at Vic Firth and Zildjian. He's got books out, worldwide best-selling author, and continuing to generate new and fresh content online for Zildjian and Vic Firth. Yeah, so chime in with any questions. Actually, Tony just asked, could I share this within my groups? You can share, the video will be up on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, so you can share it from there. The Facebook group is a closed group. We sort of made that mistake when we started the group. We sort of wish we had opened it up to the general public, but you can't share out of a private group, unfortunately. So you got to get it from YouTube, but you can share it that way. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions for Mark?
Well, Mark, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the In Spirit Digest. I just got that email this week.
Right. So we just started on both sides. On Zildjian has an In Spirit Digest, and we decided, you know, there's so many. It's kind of tricky having two companies because we have a lot of people on the Vic side that play Sabian or might play Meinl or, you know, other cymbals, and then on the Zildjian side we might have some Vader artists or some ProMark artists that, you know, play Zildjian cymbals. So we decided, let's keep these separate. That way we're not excluding anybody. You don't have to only talk to people who play both, you know. So we launched a In Spirit Digest with Zildjian in September, and then we have one with Vic in October. So the plan is to do every month, and to try to hit on the education side, try to hit, you know, at least one marching, at least one concert, at least one drum set, and then some kind of an educational resource so people can see, oh, you know, here's one more thing that we have that we, you know, might not have known about. So the trick right now is not whether, you know, what to put in, it's how much can we do, you know. So yeah, we just launched that. A lot of great content. Joe Testa's got an interview with Steve Gadd that, you know, that really good. You know, there's no shortage of talking. I mean, like I could do an interview with each one of you guys, and you're going to get some great stuff out of it, you know. And I sincerely believe that you don't have to talk to Steve Gadd to find out something amazingly, you know, that you can apply to your teaching or your playing. You can talk to, you know, anybody that's been around, you know.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And frankly, I feel like what we do here at the Drummers Education Connection is kind of a testament to exactly that, because we have different guests on every week. Some people are industry people like you. Sometimes they're just teachers. Sometimes they're famous players. And I feel like I learned something from everybody, you know, from just a local teacher who's got a shop, you know, a studio, to we had Greg Bissonette on a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, we all start from the same place. You know, we're all just human beings with humble beginnings, no matter who you are. And we all have a story about, you know, how we got where we are and the people that helped us get there. And, you know, nobody does it alone. So,
yeah, I tell you, that's the thing that I love most about this job and the 20 plus years that I've been doing it is the community of drummers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a family, whether you go to PAS or you go to any drum show, Montreal Drumfest or NAMM, or, any time that I've ever been at a table or a bar, never really in a bar, but, like a dinner or standing on the floor, or you saw me close down a couple of those, I bet. I mean, it's fascinating talking to everyone, just because everybody's got their perception, like we could bring up, how much do you squeeze when you hit a downstroke? If you're playing a backbeat, how much are you squeezing? Where are you squeezing? Are you squeezing here? I mean, this off the top of my head, but I could ask any one of you guys and you're going to have a completely different take on it, a different insight, like here's what I do. And, you learn from all of that. So there's nothing that's not fascinating about talking to people.
That's it. That's one great thing about the drumming community is that we all respect each other from our observation as career drummers and doing this show for over a year. And everybody is just so willing to share knowledge. And it's just helping to elevate. But Mark, I think it's just so fantastic, like all of the resources that you've been involved with that really, really support the drumming community and support us teachers. So every student who comes in here, I turn them onto the Vic Firth website and the rudiments. It's the most fantastic list of rudiments. You hear them, they're there right in front of you. And so I'm excited about the digest too, the In Spirit Digest. So this is a great resource too. Now, if you're, an educator, you should take this stuff and send this out to your students. Don't just have somebody come in for a drum lesson out there and then you're not going to see them till the next lesson. Send them something valuable. And so and you never know what's going to click with somebody, like I see the Groove Essentials up on your wall, working with Tommy way back when that was just an idea. Hey, what are the rudiments for drum set, and we were coming up with, hey, let's do a poster of all the drum set rudiments, where all the grooves and filming Tommy in his basement the very first time that we got together and filmed all of those things before it became this big Hudson Music thing. Like all of these were just ideas with a guy, and something like sending your kids to that, I can't, like that's still there. It's still like one of the best resources ever. And, Tommy teaches so great and he's such a great player that you can look at a video from a long time ago and it's still amazing, So yeah, take advantage of it. It's free. Absolutely. And all of the posters too, all the clinics I've done and hosted too. You get the Vic Firth rudiment poster and I've got the check patterns poster. And I don't know if all of these are still available.
Daniel Glass had the history of I don't know if you've ever seen that whole thing that I did with Daniel.
Yeah.
That's an amazing thing. I mean, it's really cool just to watch it. Occasionally I'll come upon something that I did a long time ago with an artist and I start watching it going, God, that was amazing. Like that guy is so good.
Do you have any favorite? I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying Zorro's, We Want the Funk poster. Y'all remember that one?
I've got We Want the Funk on my wall and A Century of Drumming Evolution. So I'm students of both of those guys and I've hosted them here. And, they'd come in for a clinic and then we get a package from Vic Firth of posters and stickers and, and then it's just great. And then someone comes in for a drum lesson. Hey, here, have the Zorro poster. Have the Daniel poster.
I'm glad you brought that up, Rick. That's one thing I wanted to emphasize. I'm a Vic Firth guy, and so maybe I'm biased, but I feel like one of the things that draws me that I appreciate so much about Vic Firth and what the education, portion of the company has done is supported artists and supported educators. So in the Bandworks program that I run, we have 1,200 students about every year, and we have Vic Firth banners on our wall. And Vic Firth sends us stickers for the kids and posters and lanyards, that we give out just as freebies because we want to help support the brand, and the brand wants to help support us, and it's this great relationship we have. And Vic Firth has gone around, and back when Vic was around, they were going around the country doing these local drum teacher kind of clinic workshops, talking to drum teachers. I went to one of them in San Francisco about, how can we serve you better? What's working for you? What ideas do you have? What resources can we provide both online and in person? And, to me, that's a commitment to drumming everywhere. And drummer, it's not just about making money. It's not just about making products. It's about providing a service to the community. So I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the things from Vic himself. I think, on the Vic Firth education page, Joe Rothman put a little post up that said, like those who can play, those who can't play, teach, and he was just debating. He was debating that. He was like, this is absolutely wrong. Have you ever heard this before? And then, I had to chime in because that was Vic's entire, mantra, was that teachers are some of the most important people in drumming community. It's the teachers that create the players. It's the, like not every player had a wonderful teacher, but, like he did not value artists who play at the New England Conservatory at one level and then a teacher down here, like to me, he always said, like you guys are in the trenches, you're making it happen. There's, like you're going to make the next Dave Weckl, like you're going to make the next Steve Gadd. You're, and it doesn't even matter. You're making people who enjoy playing drums. And that's what's really important.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what gets sticks in the hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Mark, you got a lot of irons in the fire. What keeps you going? What keeps you passionate about this? Like what's the driving force behind Mark Wessels right now?
Mm-hmm.
All I have to do is talk to you guys, or like.
Let me ask you.
This drive me for this hour. This has driven me, and then I'm going to get driven to, do the next thing. No, I think it literally is, when you open yourself up to, if you think about Steve Smith, the way I think about Steve Smith, he's an eternal student. Like Steve Smith will sit down with, a drum corps drummer and go like, hey, show me this. And he's always learning from everybody. And he's like the guy that, like I put up there on a pedestal as being unfinished, as good as he is, like he is learning and he is excited about learning. And I feel like the same way. I'm excited about learning from you guys. I'm excited about learning from anybody. I always want opinions on, hey, I'm doing this. What do you guys think? Getting feedback, and all of it is, it just kind of reinvigorates you every time you talk to somebody, and every time you start bringing up, hey, what can we do? We have limitations, but if we all talk about what we can't do, and if we're all fighting all the time, then, it's a drag. If we talk about what we can do, and if we talk about how to inspire people and how to get more people to enjoy to play music, what's not to love? How can you not be excited?
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, it's been an inspiration to have you on, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and talk to our listeners. Really, really great to get to know you better and hear about all the fantastic projects you have going on. And thank you so much for everything you're doing for the drumming community worldwide, and for all the people who follow. You can find out more about Mark's stuff at mwpublications.com. Did I say that right?
Yep.
And of course, check out the Vic Firth website and the Zildjian website for all the great resources they have there. If you're digging one of those, chances are pretty good that Mark's had his hand in it. Yeah. So, thanks for coming out, and we'll hope to have you back sometime.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, great.
Mark, thanks for sharing all this information with us. We really appreciate it. We're here for you. Anything that you need. And you're welcome back anytime if you want to have any endeavors you want to talk about them.
So, all right. Am I correct, you guys, that next week we have none other than Chris Brady on?
Apparently,
We
Oh
have
man, that's gonna be a
Chris
good one.
Brady of Aquarian next week.
I don't trust that guy as far as I can throw him, but he's a really good guy.
I hope he's watching.
All
Thank
right,
you,
well, we'll be
Mark.
back next week. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
All
Thanks,
right.
Mark.